Welcome in my story corner. I'm Jess, and here we read all kinds of stories. Some are true stories, some fiction, and some true stories that we sometimes wish were fiction. We do them all. So if you're into intriguing, dark, and scary tales, it's time to kick back, chill, and relax. If you're new here, welcome. Stay a bit, see if you like it. We'd love to have you. The Silver Wolf Queen. Chapter 6. The Shadows Awaken. 300 miles from the forest of no return, a rider crossed the mountains beneath a moonless sky. His horse was dying. Foam covered its neck. Blood stained its flanks. Its legs shook from exhaustion. Still, the rider pushed harder. Faster. Desperately. Because fear rode beside him. And fear was far more dangerous than fatigue. The storm had followed him for 2 days. Black clouds rolled overhead. Thunder growled across the distant peaks. Cold rain hammered the mountain trails. Yet none of that frightened him. What he had seen did. The rider glanced behind him. The darkness stretched empty across the mountains. No pursuit. No movement. Nothing. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something watched from the shadows. Something ancient. Something patient. Something that had awakened. By dawn, the rider finally reached his destination. A fortress. Massive black walls rose from the cliffs like the teeth of some sleeping beast. Watchtowers pierced the clouds. Iron gates stood nearly 30 feet high. Thousands of warriors guarded the battlements. The sight would have intimidated most men, but the rider felt only relief. Because if anywhere in the world could protect him, it was here. The gates opened and the rider entered. Minutes later, he stood inside the fortress's central hall, and immediately wished he hadn't. The room felt cold despite the roaring fires. Not physically cold. Wrong. Like stepping into a cave occupied by a predator. At the far end of the hall stood a throne carved from black stone. A man sat upon it, motionless, silent, watching. The rider dropped to one knee, heart hammering. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to flee and to hide. Yet there was nowhere he could go, no place beyond this man's reach. My lord. The figure on the throne remained silent, waiting. The rider swallowed. We felt it. Still silence. Then finally, what did you feel? The voice was calm, controlled, dangerous. The rider's mouth went dry. The awakening. The temperature in the room seemed to drop instantly. Every guard became still. Every servant froze. The man upon the throne slowly leaned forward. For the first time, his face emerged from the shadows. Sharp features. Dark hair streaked with silver. Eyes like polished obsidian. Ancient eyes. The eyes of a predator. The awakening? The rider nodded nervously. Silver energy. His voice trembled. Stronger than anything recorded before. The man's expression never changed. Yet something shifted behind those black eyes. Recognition. Interest. Concern. Perhaps all three. Where? The rider hesitated. The answer felt dangerous. Everything about this conversation felt dangerous. The forest of no return. Silence fell. Absolute silence. Then, the black stone armrest shattered beneath the man's hand. The rider nearly jumped. No one else moved. As though such displays were common. The ruler rose slowly from his throne. For several long moments, he stared toward the distant eastern mountains. Toward the forest. Toward the place where a forgotten bloodline had awakened. Finally, he spoke. The words barely rose above a whisper. Yet everyone heard them. Impossible. The writer wished that were true. Unfortunately, it wasn't. The man's name was Malachar, and 1,000 years ago, his family had helped destroy the Silver Wolf Kingdom. History remembered the Silver Wolves as legends, heroes, kings, queens, protectors. But history rarely mentioned the men who defeated them, and Malachar preferred it that way. Heroes inspired loyalty. Villains inspired resistance. Better to let people forget. Better to let the past die. For centuries, his bloodline had ruled from the shadows. Patient and careful. Watching and waiting. Ensuring the Silver Wolves never returned. Every surviving descendant had been hunted. Every rumor investigated. Every possible heir eliminated. Or so they believed. Malachar stood before a massive map covering the wall of his war chamber. The forest of no return occupied a small section near the eastern border. An insignificant patch of wilderness. Or at least it had been until now. Now it demanded his full attention. A dozen advisors waited nearby. None dared speak. The mood in the room had become increasingly tense. Finally, one advisor cleared his throat. "My lord." Malachar didn't look away from the map. The man hesitated. Could it be a false signal? No answer came immediately. Several seconds passed. Then Malachar spoke. "No." The certainty in his voice silenced everyone. "The silver blood has awakened." The room fell quiet. One advisor swallowed nervously while another looked pale. Even seasoned commanders appeared uneasy, and that alone revealed how serious the situation was. A younger officer stepped forward. "Then we send hunters." Malachar slowly turned, and the officer immediately regretted speaking. Everyone could see it, including Malachar. The ruler's gaze settled upon him. Cold, deadly. "Hunters." The officer nodded uncertainly. "Yes, my lord." Malachar smiled. The expression contained no warmth whatsoever. 1,000 years ago, my ancestors sent armies. The room remained silent. They sent assassins. His smile widened slightly. They sent monsters. The officer's confidence vanished completely. And still one survived. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. Because everyone understood. If a silver wolf heir truly lived, then she had already succeeded where countless others failed. Underestimating her would be fatal. Malachar returned his attention to the map. "Find her." The command echoed through the chamber. Simple, direct, absolute. Learn everything. His voice darkened. Who she is. How powerful she has become. Who protects her. The ruler's eyes narrowed. And, if necessary, the room seemed to grow colder. "Finish what our ancestors started." The order settled heavily upon every soul present, because everyone knew exactly what it meant. War. Not immediately, not openly, but war nonetheless. The long-forgotten conflict was beginning again. And this time, the Silver Wolves would not remain hidden. Far away, unaware of the storm gathering beyond the mountains, Ivy was losing a fight against a bookshelf. Technically, the bookshelf wasn't fighting back, yet somehow it was winning. Comfortably. She stared at the towering collection of ancient texts inside the Hall of Kings. Then stared some more. She looked to her left, considered leaving through the nearest window. An increasingly attractive option. Celine stood nearby, entirely too cheerful. "These are the royal archives." Ivy groaned. "There are hundreds of books here," she said while her eyes ran over the rows and rows of books and scrolls. "Thousands." Celine corrected her. That was even worse. Considerably worse. The elder smiled. You'll need to learn them eventually. Ivy looked horrified. All of them. Well, most of them. Human cruelty truly had no limits, or apparently, wolf cruelty. The distinction felt increasingly meaningless. Celine laughed softly as if she could read Ivy's thoughts. Knowledge is power. Can I have a sword instead? No. Knowledge is more powerful than a mere sword. That's disappointing. While the elder continued sorting ancient scrolls, amusement danced in her eyes, a dangerous sign. It usually meant another lesson was coming, and sure enough, she wasn't wrong. Today we're studying diplomacy. Ivy immediately regretted waking up. Diplomacy? Celine nodded. A queen does more than fight. The elder handed her a scroll. She negotiates. Another scroll. Leads. Another. Inspires. The pile continued growing. Ivy stared at it helplessly. This feels a bit excessive, don't you think? Celine ignored her, which unfortunately meant the lesson continued. Hours later, Ivy sat surrounded by maps, treaties, and enough historical records to bury a small village. Her head hurt. Her eyes hurt. Even Lenara seemed bored. And that is a remarkable achievement. This is painful. Lenara scoffs. Ivy nearly laughed. See? Even my wolf agrees. I would rather fight something. Exactly. Preferably something large. Exactly. Celine glanced up. You do realize you're speaking aloud? Ivy froze. The elder's smile widened. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Embarrassing herself in front of royalty lessons, because why not, right? Her life remained remarkably consistent in that regard. Yet, despite the complaints, the endless reading, and the growing responsibilities, something had changed. For the first time in years, she actually felt hopeful. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building something, learning and growing every day, becoming. The realization caught her a bit off guard, because somewhere along the way, the hidden valley had stopped feeling temporary. Instead, it had become home. But unknown to Ivy, that home was about to be tested, because beyond the mountains, the hunters were already moving. The first hunter arrived 3 days later. Not at the valley. Not yet. The silver wolves were hidden too well for that. Instead, he arrived at the outer reaches of the forest of no return, and immediately knew something had changed. The forest felt different, alive and watching. The ancient trees stretched endlessly into the distance. Mist drifted between twisted roots. Birdsong had vanished. Even the wind seemed cautious here. The hunter dismounted slowly. His name was Darius. And unlike most wolves, Darius did not rely on strength. He relied on patience. Patience had kept him alive for nearly 40 years. Patience had earned him Malakar's trust. Patience had allowed him to track prey across entire kingdoms. People, wolves, criminals, runaways. No matter who it is, no one stayed hidden forever. Eventually, everyone left a trail. Darius specialized in finding it. The scar running across his left eye twitched slightly as he surveyed the forest. Something was wrong. The feeling crawled beneath his skin, like stepping into a church built for forgotten gods. The place felt ancient, powerful, and dangerous. Most men would have turned back. But Darius walked forward, because curiosity had always outweighed common sense. An unfortunate personality trait, yet a profitable one. The tracker crouched beside a patch of disturbed earth. Fresh footprints. Several wolves. Recent. Interesting. Very interesting. The reports suggested the forest was empty. Abandoned. Cursed. Dead. Clearly the reports were wrong. Darius smiled. The best hunts always began with bad information. He rose slowly, then continued deeper into the trees, unaware that golden eyes watched him from above. A silver wolf crouched silently among the branches, perfectly still, perfectly hidden. The scout waited until Darius disappeared into the forest, then shifted. Moments later, a young woman sprinted through the trees, heading directly toward the hidden valley, toward Orion, toward Ivy. The hunt had begun. Arya found Ivy on the training grounds, which was unfortunate, because whenever Arya found her, pain usually followed. But the warrior captain crossed the clearing at a run, her expression serious, urgent. Immediately, Ivy knew this was not training. Something was wrong. Arya never ran. Running suggested actual trouble. What's happened? Arya didn't slow down. Scout report. The answer came between breaths. Outer forest. Every instinct inside Ivy sharpened instantly. Lenara stirred. Alert. Listening. Enemy? Arya nodded. Possibly. The single word changed everything. Training stopped. Conversations ended immediately, and the relaxed atmosphere vanished. Within minutes, the valley transformed. Warriors moved into position. Scouts prepared patrol routes. Messengers rushed between buildings. The hidden settlement had survived for centuries because it treated every threat seriously. No exceptions. Ivy followed Arya toward the Hall of Kings. The council chamber was already crowded and Orion stood at the center of the room. Selene stood nearby studying a map while several scouts waited along the walls. One stepped forward immediately. Young, breathing hard, still recovering from her sprint through the forest. I saw him. The room fell silent. The scout pointed toward the northern border. One man. Arya frowned. Only one. The scout nodded. That's what worried me. Several warriors exchanged looks. A fair point. One man entering the forest of no return alone wasn't brave. It was insane. Or confident. Neither possibility was comforting. Selene folded her arms. Describe him. The scout thought for a moment. Tall. A scar over one eye. The description immediately caught Orion's attention. The giant wolf became very still. A dangerous stillness that felt tangible. The kind predators displayed before attacking. Selene noticed. Orion? Do you know him? Orion's answer came slowly. Reluctantly. Darius. The name meant nothing to Ivy, yet the reaction around the room told another story. Several elders went pale. One warrior cursed under his breath, and she saw Arya's expression hardened immediately. Not a good sign. Who? Ivy looked around. Who is Darius? No one answered immediately, which was becoming a frustrating pattern. Eventually Arya spoke. He's a tracker. Ivy blinked. That's it? The captain stared. No, not just any tracker. He is the tracker. Silence followed. Heavy silence that filled the room to the point of suffocation, or so it felt. The uncomfortable kind. The kind that usually preceded bad news. Arya continued. Darius has spent decades hunting people for Malachar. The name was unfamiliar. Yet Lunara reacted instantly. A growl echoed through their bond. Pure hatred. Pure rage. The sudden intensity startled Ivy. Lunara? The great wolf's response came like distant thunder. Malachar. Just hearing the name seemed to anger her. Interesting. And deeply concerning. Then Orion's voice cut through the room. If Darius is here, The giant wolf's golden eyes narrowed. Then Malachar knows something has happened. A chill spread through the chamber as every wolf instantly understood the implication. Someone had noticed Ivy's awakening. Someone powerful and dangerous. And now they were searching for her. Later that night, Ivy stood alone at the valley overlook. The moon hung high above the mountains. Silver light painted the world below. Normally, the view calmed her, but tonight it didn't. Too many thoughts crowded her mind. Too many questions. She leaned against a stone ledge, trying to sort through everything. Malachar, Darius, hunters, enemies. The future suddenly felt larger than before. Much more complicated than a day ago. More dangerous. Then she could feel Linara. Not physically, but spiritually. The giant silver wolf settled within their shared consciousness. Watching the moon. Silent. Until finally Ivy spoke. You know him, don't you? It wasn't a question, and Linara didn't deny it. Yes, she said. The answer carried centuries of bitterness. Who is he? For several moments, the wolf remained quiet, as though choosing her words carefully. Finally, she answered. Malachar is the heir of the Black Throne. The title sounded ominous, which usually meant it was. His ancestors led the alliance that destroyed our kingdom. Ivy's stomach tightened. And there it was. The connection. The enemy behind the stories. Behind the betrayal. Behind her whole family's deaths. Behind everything. Linara's silver eyes seemed distant. Lost in memories older than nations. For 1,000 years his bloodline has hunted ours. The weight of those words settled heavily upon Ivy. 1,000 years? An entire millennium of hatred. An entire millennium of fear. Of senseless bloodshed. No wonder the silver wolves had hidden. The miracle wasn't that they disappeared. The miracle was that they survived it all. Ivy stared toward the horizon. Toward lands she had never seen. Toward enemies she had never met. And yet, somehow, the fear she expected never came. Instead, she felt something else. Determination. Because, now, she had something worth protecting. A family, her people, her home. The hidden valley wasn't just a refuge anymore. It belonged to her. Was a part of her. And she belonged to the valley, to her people. Linara seemed pleased by the realization of Ivy's determination. Good. Ivy frowned. What do you mean good? Queens who fear responsibility rarely survive. That sounded suspiciously like a compliment. The giant wolf was getting better at those, though she would probably deny it. Ivy smiled faintly. Then her expression grew serious. If they come, the question hung in the air. Linara turned toward her, ancient silver eyes glowing softly. Then we fight. Simple. Direct. Certain. Not because they wanted war. Because some things were worth defending. The moonlight brightened while a cold wind swept across the mountains. Darius smiled as he discovered another trail hidden deep within the forest. A trail leading somewhere important. Leading toward the greatest secret in the world. He can feel it in his bones. And with every step he took, the distance between hunter and prey grew smaller. Darius found the first secret on the 4th day. Not a hidden entrance. Not a lost city. Not even a silver wolf. Just a footprint. Most people would have walked past it. Most trackers wouldn't have noticed it. Darius crouched beside the impression in the damp earth and smiled. Because it shouldn't have existed. The track was old. Partially erased. Hidden beneath leaves and forest debris. Deliberately concealed. Which immediately made it interesting. He brushed away a thin layer of dirt. His smile widened. Wolf tracks. Several. Large. Organized. Moving together. Not wild animals. A patrol. The realization sent a thrill through him. For days he had followed fragments. Tiny clues. Broken branches. Disturbed earth. Half-hidden scents. Now he finally had confirmation. Someone lived in these woods. Someone skilled. Someone that seemed very determined to remain unseen. Unfortunately for them, Darius was very good at finding things that wished to stay hidden. The tracker rose slowly. His gaze swept across the forest. The ancient trees stood motionless around him. Silent. Watchful. Almost threatening. And then the feeling returned. That strange sensation he'd experienced since entering the forest. The sensation of being observed. He wasn't imagining it. Someone was watching. He knew it. The question was whether they realized he knew. Darius smiled toward the trees. "You're getting sloppy." No answer came. Only silence. Yet somewhere nearby, a scout silently cursed. Because the hunter was right. The hidden track should have been erased completely. One tiny mistake. One overlooked detail. And Darius had found it. The scout immediately withdrew, moving swiftly through the forest, heading toward the valley, toward Orion and Ivy. The hunter was closer than anyone realized. In the meantime, while Darius followed clues through the forest, Ivy faced a different challenge. Leadership, which, she was discovering, was considerably harder than fighting. At least enemies usually announced themselves. People were far more complicated. The council chamber buzzed with arguments. Voices echoed from every corner of the room. Warriors, elders, scouts. Everyone seemed to have an opinion. Unfortunately, many of those opinions disagreed. Strongly. We should strengthen the northern patrols. No. We need additional lookouts. That won't matter if he already found evidence. The valley remains hidden. For now, the debate continued. Round and round. Like angry wolves chasing their own tails. Ivy sat at the center of the table, trying to follow everything. Trying not to develop the headache, but failing. Arya folded her arms. Darius isn't an army. The warrior captain sounded unimpressed. He's only one man. A scout immediately shook his head. One man who has found people that spent years hiding. Another elder nodded. Don't make that mistake. Underestimate him and will regret it. The argument reignited instantly. Wonderful. Exactly what everyone needed. More disagreement. Ivy rubbed her temples. The room grew louder. More heated. More frustrated. Until finally she stood up. Enough. The single word cut through the chaos. The room fell silent. Every head turned toward Ivy, including her own, apparently, because she hadn't planned to speak. The command simply happened. Instinctively. The sudden silence felt strange, yet not uncomfortable, just unexpected. Ivy looked around the chamber, at the warriors, the scouts, the elders, her people. The realization still felt strange, yet less strange than before. We're treating this like it's one problem. It's not. The room remained silent, listening. Several wolves exchanged thoughtful glances. Darius is one problem. She pointed toward the map. Finding us is another. Then toward the scouts. And protecting the valley is a third. Now heads were nodding. Even Arya looked interested, which felt vaguely dangerous. The warrior captain enjoying an idea usually meant more work. We don't need one solution. Ivy folded her arms. We need three. The room remained quiet, considering, evaluating. Then Celine smiled. A proud smile. One that immediately made Ivy suspicious. Because adults usually smiled like that right before assigning additional responsibility. And wouldn't you know, sure enough. Continue. There it was. The trap. Too late now. Ivy sighed internally, then began outlining a plan. And to her surprise, people listened. Not because she was a queen, because the plan made sense. A strange warmth settled in her chest. She felt like a leader, not a symbol, not a lost heir, a leader. The meeting only ended near sunset. Most wolves departed quickly. Assignments to carry out, preparations to make. Only Orion remained behind. The giant silver wolf watched quietly as Ivy gathered maps from the table. Finally, he spoke. You handled that well. Ivy glanced up. That's twice you've complimented me this week. Do not become accustomed to it. The old wolf's amusement flickered briefly, then faded. His expression grew serious. Immediately, Ivy noticed. What is it? Orion walked toward the chamber entrance. Slowly, thoughtfully. Darius. He worries me. The admission carried unusual weight, because there was very little that could worry Orion in life. The ancient guardian had faced wars, kings, monsters, time itself. Fear wasn't part of his nature, which made the statement alarming. You really think he's that dangerous? Orion stopped in his tracks, his golden eyes settled upon her. No. Ivy frowned. No? The giant wolf shook his head. I think he's worse. That wasn't what Ivy wanted to hear. Not even slightly. Orion continued. Most hunters rely on strength. The old wolf's gaze drifted toward the darkening forest beyond the valley. Darius relies on patience. Something about those words felt significant. Dangerous. The kind of dangerous that didn't announce itself. The kind that waited, watched, and learned. And struck only when victory was certain. The worst kind. A cold sensation settled in Ivy's stomach. For the first time since arriving at the hidden valley, she felt genuinely uneasy. Because enemies could be fought. Monsters could be defeated. But patience? Patience was harder. Patience slipped through cracks. Patience found weaknesses. Patience waited for mistakes. And everyone made mistakes eventually. Even queens. Especially new ones. Outside, darkness settled over the mountains. Darius sat beside a small campfire. A notebook rested in his hands. The tracker carefully sketched a map. Trails, patrol routes, guard positions, observations. Day by day, the blank spaces were disappearing. The puzzle was taking shape. And when Darius finally finished his map, he smiled. Because for the first time, he knew exactly where to look next. The hidden kingdom was no longer hidden. He just hadn't reached it yet. And that's where we'll leave Ivy for now. While Ivy is beginning to find her footing as a leader, danger is creeping closer with every passing day. Darius has entered the forest of no return, and the tracker is proving why even seasoned warriors fear his name. For the first time in centuries, the hidden kingdom of the Silver Wolves faces the possibility of being discovered. And somewhere beyond the mountains, Malachar waits patiently for news. In the next chapter, Darius will uncover a secret that brings him closer than ever to the valley, while Ivy takes her first real step into the role of queen. But leadership comes with difficult choices, and not every decision can save everyone. Before you go, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there right now. It's always incredible to see how many different places gather around the globe for these stories. And if you're enjoying the Silver Wolf Queen, please subscribe and like. It only takes a second and it's completely free. Every subscriber helps us move closer to our next milestone and keeps adventures like this alive. Until next time, be blessed and stay safe out there.